With this formation, I made it to Division 1 as easy as never before. I've had my personal best win rate ever, and as you can see, I used exclusively free players except for one. That's how strong this formation is. Welcome everybody and a special shout out to the Crisscross Discord. I will explain everything about this formation in great detail and show you lots of in-game footage demonstrating how exactly this formation works. First of all, why should you play this formation? And is it better than the current meta? For most top 200 players, probably not. Like, I don't want to clickbait or waste your time or anything. If you're this far up the ladder, playing full meta is probably better for many of you. However, since this only applies to a very tiny subset of players, I sincerely believe a lot of players could increase their win rates with this playstyle. It's also fun, by the way. Before I go through all positions, their playstyles, stats and skills in detail, I'll quickly show you the core idea of this formation, and that is patient defending with 2 walls of 4 players and long ball counter. This is your castle and we won't let anyone in. You can see I'm using 2 rows of 4 to narrow down this space as tight as possible. Now let's check the actual defensive capabilities of this formation. We have tightened up this crucial space so the opponent doesn't really have an option. I'm just covering passing lanes, and if I have enough players nearby, I send someone to pressure him. Here I'm trying to win the ball with Bellingham because I think there's a good low-risk opportunity. My opponent can either play a pass up here or backwards. He actually chooses the best option because he's quite good and knows if he plays up here, Lino will automatically move, freeing up his player in the middle. And at this point, even though he found a great solution, this attack is over. He cannot pass to this forward because Costa Curta is waiting for that. Neither can he run towards the goal himself because De Ligt is up there and 2 players behind him are chasing. He could attempt a cross downwards, but that's not a perfect idea either, because 1, Kulusevski and Wan-Bissaka are waiting to intercept, and 2, even if they wouldn't manage to, the cross will give them plenty of time to lock down the guy below, which, if you look at the minimap, would have to pass it back as well, because there's just no option. So you see, even though I committed with Bellingham, leaving a hole in the middle, within seconds, the space is so tight again that it's hard to get through. So all he can do is turn around and hope Bellingham doesn't steal the ball from him. And if you look carefully now, we're back exactly at step 1. My 2 lines of 4 are set up perfectly again like a castle, ready to keep away the intruders. This time he tries it with 2 quick passes, but again, at this point, his only option here would be a pass back. Anything else, except for some miracle skilling, would instantly result in a loss of possession. Like Einstein once said,
"Defend with as many as you can, attack with as few as you need." Probably.
So now you might think, okay, this formation works pretty nicely in defense, but that probably means it's bad when attacking, right? Watch this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. From the first pass of Costa Curta, it took only 5 seconds to have 5 players in the opposing half ready to charge at the goal. But I'll explain the offensive styles and openings when we come to the forwards. Let's check what players we need for this. Let's start with the goalkeeper. To be honest, you can use anyone you like here. The only requirement is that, like Randy Orton, he's able to perform the low punt kick, because as you can see here, they reach your forwards a lot quicker, which can be crucial to quick attacks. Keepers that don't have this skill will use this kicking style instead, where the ball goes up really high and look for yourself. It takes so long to reach the target. By then, I have 8 players in position. The center backs are pretty standard. You can go with either build up, destroyer, or like I do with Costa Curta, a player without style. I mean style based on his position, because based on his looks, that guy got plenty of style. The stats and abilities are also like any defender you'd normally use, so nothing special here. The only thing I wouldn't do is use 2 destroyers, because as soon as the ball is in a certain vicinity from them, they start furiously moving towards it like a dog that just smelled a sausage. This is a double-edged sword. On the one hand, this can help you narrowing down space, but on the other hand, this can also move the defender away from a good position position while chasing the sausage, I mean the ball. Having one destroyer is absolutely fine though. I use Jimenez myself, works really well. Who I also like using is Costa Curta, because he has a very high lofted pass stat, which is extremely useful when clearing or initiating a counter attack. Let's move on to the fullbacks, and we already include the defensive midfielder here. The reason for this is because out of these three players, you need to have at least one defensive style. So either anchorman for defensive midfielder or defensive fullback for the fullbacks. You want all three of them to stay back, but since you can only give two of them a defensive instruction, one of them needs to be defensive by default already. This is really crucial. For me, Wan-Bissaka has a defensive style, while I give Davis and Zakaria a defensive instruction. So does that mean that my fullbacks have no offensive duties? No, it means I only want them to attack when I select them. There will be situations where you win the ball and there is a lot of free space in front of you. In this case, just run forward. This can be in the middle or at the sides. It is an easy strategy to outnumber the opponent. Assuming you don't ignore the ball there, Davis. Oh well, at least he apologizes. If you look at the minimap, this wasn't even very risky, because I still have 5 at the back here. Here is the same example from my other fullback. This is a great way to create an opening with an extra man. And you even see here how Zakaria, who we will be speaking of in a minute, secures the space behind the charging Wan-Bissaka. So we're safe. Of course, you can only make these runs if there is enough space. If not, just pass the ball. For me, there are 3 things that my fullbacks must absolutely have. Pace is the most important one. Then defending, then dribbling. Wan-Bissaka is legit insane. Davids doesn't have as high defensive stats, but still works fine. The reason why I insist that speed is so important for them is because it also helps you intercept passes or chase opponents while moving backwards. Before we move to the defensive midfielder, let me show you an alternative, more offensive idea for fullbacks, which also works with this formation. I would only do this with fullback finishers like Hernandez or Marcelo, not offensive wingbacks. Let's watch what fullback finishers actually do. As long as the ball is on the opposing side, their offensive runs will not trigger. Here you can see, as soon as the ball moves to their side of the field, Theo Hernandez starts a run. And it's an absolutely great run, because without it, Rafael Leao would be all alone. The reason why I prefer fullback finishers for this is because as long as there is space at the center, they will make a center run instead of an outside run, and the center one is so much better. If your opponent plays very offensively, this is of course a bit risky. Your defense is pretty smart though, because watch here, as soon as Theo Hernandez leaves his position, the left center back will start covering the space and the other defenders will adjust accordingly. Even if you lose the ball here, which yes of course I did, and of course only to show you what else. Theo's positioning isn't always bad. In fact, like here, he's in a good spot to intercept short passes or stall the counter-attack. The player will also sprint back as soon as your attack is over. However, formations that quickly skip the midfield can give you trouble this way. If you decide to play like this, you need a player with great stamina though. Otherwise, you will have to switch him out at some point. Let's move on to my defensive midfielder, Zakaria. That guy is our insurance. Of course, like with any other player I mentioned, you can always play with epic or big time players that are better. They will obviously work. I'm just using the best ones I have. I don't have Vieira, for example, who is probably the best player for this position. If you don't use an anchorman here, you need to give him the defensive instruction. This guy's aim is to intercept counterattacks and stall the game for your midfielders to come back and defend. He wins the ball, but immediately moves backwards. He does not involve himself in the attack at all. So if we lose the ball, we always have someone that can stall the game until the other midfielders are back. Here you can see, if Zakaria wasn't there, we'd have a big problem. It would be 4 against 4, and the opponent could freely choose where to pass, and our other midfielders would not make it back in time. He's occupying crucial space, which is essentially nullifying 3 different passing options for the opponent by just existing. This is bonkers. It forces the opponent to play the ball down, which is way less threatening than any of the other options. And as you can see by now, knock knock, Who's there? 2 lines of 4, baby. But not enough. He even steals it. Wonderful. Now, before we check what stats are important, some of you might wonder if you can do the same offensive runs with Zakaria that we do with the fullbacks if there is space. Yes, you can, for 2 reasons. The first one is, if you occupy the center with him, odds are your CMF, in my case Bellingham, a box-to-box player, will stay back. Not as far as Zakaria would, but far enough. The second one is, as soon as you make a pass, Zakaria will move backwards. At the minimap you can even see here how Bellingham moves forward only once he knows that Zakaria started his run backwards. Beautiful. There, back he is. So what stats does the DMF need? It's similar to the fullbacks, except that I think the defensive stats are more important than pace here. Pace is still super important because even if he had extremely high defensive stats, if he has low pace, like standout Rodri for example, he would often just miss an interception or tackle simply because he didn't even make it to the position because he is too slow. Also, passing matters because he will do that a lot, sometimes even longer passes. I also like it when the DMF is tall because that increases his range for interceptions and makes him better in aerial duels, which will happen a lot. Ability wise, it's no different than a DMF in any other formation. That's actually one of Zakaria's small weaknesses. He doesn't have aerial superiority, but he does pretty much have everything else needed. Stats and abilities alike, like literally. One touch pass, weighted pass, interception, blocker, fighting spirit, you name it. One of my favorite players. Next coming up is the central midfielder. As you might have already noticed, other than the DMF, when attacking, this guy actually joins our attack as the 5th man. I love Bellingham or Bernardo Silva here. I would recommend the box-to-box player. The biggest perk about those is that their offensive routes are pretty flexible. They can charge both towards the middle or towards any side, meaning they can, for example, overlap a cutting in or roaming flank from the outside to give them a wide passing option. Like here, Kulusevski is a roaming flank and is in the center right now. He receives the ball and box-to-box Bernardo immediately runs behind him and occupies the space on the outside. Orchestrators also do this, but I prefer box-to-box because when building up, they come closer to your defense, making it easier to pass to them. That's one reason why I prefer a box-to-box player as a central midfielder. Whole players are slightly more offensive, but can still work. The only time a box-to-box player won't immediately join the offense is when another player occupies the route they wanted to take and all other paths are taken as well. I'll show you. Here you can see that Chukwueze is getting in Bellingham's Chukwueze, which results in Bellingham staying a bit further back and only slowly moving forward. If any lane is free, however, the box-to-box player will take it, even if it's on the sides. If you observe Messi and Bellingham here, you can clearly see the interaction between them. Whenever Messi moves away, making the outside path free, Bellingham runs exactly there immediately. You don't really need any special abilities for your central midfielder that you wouldn't need in other formations either, so whatever you have is probably fine. Let's move to our wings. First of all, if you prefer or have players to, you can easily make both of these attacking midfielders by just moving them an inch to the middle. That is absolutely fine. What I would recommend here is using inverted strong foots, meaning a strong right foot on the left side and vice versa. This will allow both of them to cut in and curl or cut in and pass, which you will definitely be doing more often than going straight to pass or cross. The play styles are actually pretty flexible here. You can use a whole player, which will be the one doing the most aggressive runs, or a roaming flank if you prefer the cut-in movement. You can even use a box-to-box player here if you like. You can also use a player without any suitable style like I do. That perfectly works as well. Additionally, assuming you use attacking midfielders, you can also go for creative playmakers. I sometimes do this with Musiala or Foden. I would definitely advise against the classic number 10 or a cross specialist. Classic number 10s will stop too early in the attack and stay too far back for a formation that relies on quick finishes. This playstyle is more suited for possession play. Ability-wise, apart from the obvious, long-range curler or even blitz curler are really strong. One thing that some of my wingers or attacking midfielders have that I absolutely love is the ability track back. That, combined with unexpectedly high defensive stats, like Samuel Lino has, is super underrated. You would really be surprised how many balls this can win you back. fullback. What your wingers or attacking midfielders definitely need, other than what they need in other formations anyway, are abilities to skill. Ideally, both of them have a nice double touch and a Marseille turn, or other skills that you're comfortable with. Just look at how one well-timed skill makes such a big difference. Chukwueze wins so much space by this. Or look at this typical situation, which you will come across a lot. At this point, the ball is lost. Except it isn't. Ha! You see, ideally, your wings, your forwards, and even your central midfielder have at least one ability that allows them to pass a defender and win a lot of space by doing so. Not only does it feel super rewarding, but it also makes you a lot more unpredictable. Many players will not anticipate skills, and once they've seen you do them, some of them will especially wait for you to do skills, which is good for you because they might be more passive that way. Next up are the two forwards. They are absolutely carrying this formation. Just like with meta formations, you want fast, agile dribblers with very good finishing stats. The required skills are also no different from the meta. Similar to the wingers, strong left foot on the right side, strong right foot on the left side. We want both of them to have the counter target instruction, so they are always far up and will not waste their stamina. Neymar is a deep lying forward, and I would not use anything else here. Although other stuff works, but this is just too good. I think this works best because they have a very unique trait, which is falling back into free spaces at times to escape the defenders and offer an additional passing opportunity. Watch it, this is amazing. To spot the difference, look at Messi's run here. He doesn't fall back at all. He moves along the defensive line. Messi has no style activator. He's a roaming flank. This is so valuable because so many times he will move in such a clever position that it's just far enough away from any defender to do anything. And the absolute best thing is he isn't limited to this. He can also run through like a goal poacher or play off the shoulders of the offside line like a fox in the box. This is brilliant. What's extremely strong about this formation is how well Neymar and Messi's pathing blend with each other's. Look how Neymar is falling back again while Messi is starting a run. Neymar positions himself just far enough away so that he can safely receive the ball. Here's another example of how different the runs are. Bellingham gets the ball, and while Messi is raising his arm for a run forward, Neymar stays back for a short passing option. Enough of the deep lying forward, let's move to the other central forward, whose runs we have already seen. This Messi card is a legitimate cheat code. I mean, look at this. I think using a goal poacher or fox in the box would work just as well as no style, which is what I use because, as I said, Messi is a roaming flank. You could also try to pair a goal poacher, fox in the box, or a no style player with a dummy runner instead of a deep lying forward, but why would you want to give up the beauty that is a deep lying forward? Two goal poachers or foxes in the box or a mix of these two is also viable. If for some reason the deep lying forward doesn't suit you and you absolutely want to go for it, you could try that. Last but not least, Subtactics. My current subtactic is making one of the wingers a central or attacking midfielder and the other winger a wing forward, while Neymar switches from central forward to wing forward, resulting in a pretty standard formation as you can see here. I use this if I want to play a bit more offensive, or if I somehow can't really get any good attacks done, I want to change my style. With this subtactic, instead of only 2, 3 players will not run backwards, meaning you will only defend with 7 instead of 8. The dynamic of your attacks will also change, because the central forward will be directly in the center, and 2 players, namely the central midfielder and the attacking midfielder, will make runs through the middle, giving you more options for example, long shots from just outside the box. What you could also do if you really like is use a regular meta formation as a subtactic, like 4-1-2-3 with 2 attacking midfielders, 1 second striker, and 2 central forwards. All you need for this is 1 winger that can play either as a second striker or a forward, and a central midfielder that can play attacking midfielder. There are plenty who can do this. That's it. If you have any questions or feedback, feel free to comment. I'll gladly answer all of it. I'd be very happy if you'd subscribe, and until then guys, take it easy. Shaka!